Hola, buenos días a todos en México, buenas tardes en Europa. Mi nombre es Adrián Enciso Velázquez y soy consultor en el proyecto del Instrumento de Apoyo a los Diálogos Sectoriales Unión Europea y México. Les doy la más cordial bienvenida al tercer webinar del primer Foro de Economía Digital Unión Europea-México, que es organizado por la Delegación de la Unión Europea en México con la colaboración de IDEA Guanajuato. Durante el foro hemos tenido y seguiremos teniendo la oportunidad de conversar con autoridades, expertos técnicos y empresarios mexicanos y de la Unión Europea de alto nivel sobre temas relevantes en las diversas áreas de la economía digital en la actualidad. Antes de presentar al panel de hoy, que va a tratar sobre la forma en la que las PyMEs pueden ocupar los servicios de Big Analytics y servicios de almacenamiento en la nube, me permitiré dar algunas informaciones sobre el foro en general y cómo vamos a trabajar el día de hoy. Muy importante, la sesión de hoy va a ser, bueno, los panelistas y el moderador hablarán en inglés todo el tiempo. Entonces, si ustedes tienen necesidad de los servicios de interpretación, les pedimos que los utilicen. Aquí abajo en la barra de herramientas hay un icono con un globo, un planeta, que dice interpretación. Por favor, hagan clic ahí y elijan el audio en español para escuchar a nuestros intérpretes. Esta función solamente está disponible en una PC. No, si se conectan desde un celular, no está disponible. Bueno, eso como primera instancia. Ahora les comento un poco del foro, que comprende 8 webinars que han tenido lugar desde la semana pasada, el 9 de noviembre, hasta el 2 de diciembre. Todas las conferencias son de acceso gratuito y ustedes pueden registrarse visitando el sitio economía digital UE-MX.com para que revisen lo del programa de los webinars que todavía restan y puedan registrarse a los que les interesen. Además, del 31 de enero al 10 de febrero del 2022, vamos a tener sesiones virtuales de negocios en una plataforma que estamos por lanzar la próxima semana. En esa plataforma ustedes podrán crear los perfiles de sus organizaciones, de sus proyectos y buscar socios potenciales para desarrollar colaboraciones o negocios entre empresas mexicanas y de la Unión Europea. En cuanto a la sesión de hoy, sus cámaras y micrófonos estarán silenciados durante las intervenciones de los panelistas para evitar ruidos de fondo o interrupciones. Las preguntas que tengan, les pedimos las escriban en la sección de preguntas y respuestas. Acá abajo hay una sección específica de preguntas y respuestas, indicando a qué panelista va dirigida. ¿Ok? Al finalizar la sesión, tendremos unos 15 minutos para tomar estas preguntas y hacérselas a los panelistas. La sesión, como les comentaba, el audio va a estar disponible en el canal de español con nuestros intérpretes. Acá abajo pueden seleccionar esta función de interpretación para cambiar el audio de la sesión. Al finalizar la sesión vamos a darles permisos para abrir sus cámaras para tomar una foto de grupo, por lo cual les vamos a pedir paciencia para activar sus cámaras y que ustedes puedan encenderlas. También hacia el final del webinar les dejaremos en el chat una encuesta de satisfacción, la cual es muy importante que nos ayuden a contestarla. Les toma un par de minutos nomás, ¿vale? Y sin más preámbulos, bueno, ahora paso a presentar a nuestro moderador del día de hoy, que es Enrique Cortés Reyo. Él es director del Artificial Intelligence Hub en el Tecnológico de Monterrey. Y vaya, gracias a sus conocimientos nos va a ayudar con la moderación de este panel. Enrique, muchas gracias por tu participación y pues adelante. Gracias.
Thanks, Adrian. This is an international panel, so we will all speak in English, even if English is not our native language. So good morning, Mexico. Good morning, Europe. We're going to talk about cloud, data analytics, machine learning in this panel, and how that applies to small enterprises. What I would tell you is this topic used to be very exotic years ago, but now it's a very natural topic. I talk to startups a lot in Mexico and in Latin America. And what I can tell you is startups today do not even consider not going to the cloud. cloud is the natural path for startups, and startups today do not even consider storing their data or using compute services from any place else. Actually, most startups I talk to at Tec de Monterrey, they are really 3 guys, 3 laptops, and the cloud, and their brains, and the cloud services. That's it. That's how it starts. And as they grow, the sophistication in the use of cloud increases, but I don't see anyone anywhere in the startups that I talk to, which are usually startups with a technological base, that do not use the cloud. So now I don't think in the young people that start companies, there's any fear or any ignorance on how the cloud works. It also helps that the cloud providers, at least the 3 big ones, they do a lot of education on how to use their cloud services they provide. And they even give free services, right? To people that are starting off, they give education, etc. So the path now to the cloud is very easy. I think that the people that have a problem with the cloud are the older enterprises, the legacy enterprises, the people that had on-premise services. Those guys have a problem. Those guys have some fear. Young ones, it's natural for them to do this. We have a very awesome panel here. We have 2 Mexican entrepreneurs, and then we have 2 European experts. We have Esther Riveroll, who is the CEO of Alldatum Business in Mexico. We have Aldo Luévano, who is the CEO of Roomie IT, Mexico. We have Matt Kuppers, who is a consultant, independent expert for the European Commission. And then we have Federico Facca, who is the CTO of Martel Innovate, an innovation company in Europe. So the way this will work is each panelist will introduce his or herself, the company and what they do, 5 minutes each. And then we will enter a dialogue about topics of interest to you and to us. So why don't we start with Esther Riveroll? Esther, can you present yourself and your company in 5 minutes, please?
Yes, Enrique, sure. Hello, everybody. Nice to have you here. I think it's very interesting, this point. My name is Esther Riveroll. I have more than 30 years working on the IT technology, but I created my own company 6 years ago because I saw the potential on the data and digital transformation, and now on the cloud, that help us and allow us to go to that digital transformation. Our company, and now it's growing. I have a lot of millennials working with me. Maybe there's not a lot of talent, but we are training them for this. And I love technology because I think that technology is the thing that it's going to transform the world in the future. So our company is specialized very, very much on how to get the value on digital transformation strategies and the data, how to get the wisdom and the knowledge on the data. And of course, for that, you need analytics, you need big data, you need cloud, and you need everything that we are talking in this forum. So thank you very much, Enrique, Adriana, everybody, to inviting me.
Thank you, Esther. Now, why don't we go to Aldo, CEO of Roomie IT.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation. I am Aldo Luévano. I'm the CEO of Roomie IT Service. We are a deep tech company that currently is implementing, selling, and commercializing humanoid robotics for LATAM. We are pioneers in LATAM market. And today we have 3 different solutions in our portfolio. We have cloud native development. We have data and AI solutions, and we are implementing robotics. Personally, I am the CEO of Roomie IT. I have more than 7 years as an entrepreneur, and I have more than 13 years developing the business. I used to work for very large organizations such as IBM and HP. I am engineer, and also I have the award as one of the most important innovators under 35 by the MIT Technology Review. And thank you very much.
Yeah, congratulations for that MIT Technology Review honor. That's a biggie, man. Well done.
Yes, thank you very much.
You go. Now I'll ask Matt Kuppers to introduce himself and his area of expertise.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much for the invitation. My name is Matt Kuppers. I live in London. I'm a German. I have been working with the European Commission as an independent expert since 2016. I mainly focus on entrepreneurship, ecosystem development. I have been evaluating numerous projects that are concerned with funding entrepreneurship activities across Europe. I have also been working with more than 12 accelerators in the past 10 years. I have been working with the accelerator management and also with the startups and SMEs all across Europe. So I'm quite well integrated in the European startup ecosystem. And much earlier in my career, I used to work in venture capital that funded actually startups and also cloud-based startups and SMEs. Back in the day, that was 2007, 8, 9, when cloud was a big topic, as you mentioned, Enrique. But these days, everything's happening in the cloud. All startups are actually having cloud-based infrastructure, or the big corporates as well, such as Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Amazon. It's a very interesting topic. It's still very hot. It's very relevant as well, especially in times where cybersecurity and cyber war is actually rising. So we should certainly talk about it and exchange really good ideas.
Thank you, Matt. And now we go to Federico Facca, CTO of Martel Innovate. I think you have a little presentation, Federico.
Yeah, I will try to be quick with my slides.
Take your time, man. We are okay.
Yeah. Good. So who I am? I'm the CTO of an innovation company called Martel Innovate. And my expertise is related to cloud native architecture, mostly working with the creation of complex application over Kubernetes type of platform. And I have been coordinator of several UICT projects, including one we was shared with Mexico. It's called Smart SDK. The project ended in 2018, if I'm not wrong, and was a very interesting project, even including Técnico de Monterrey, actually. And at the moment, I'm leading the development of a cloud-based IoT platform. And so this is, of course, one of our main interests today is exploring what you can do using cloud to provide IoT solution in different sectors. The company itself was founded more than 25 years ago, but changed a lot along the time. And we have been participating in many European projects. And yes, that's more or less the picture of the company. And you see here some of the projects currently active. And in particular, I want to mention H-Cloud, because this is a CSA of which I'm the coordinator. And for who doesn't know what is a CSA is a project funded by the Commission to help to understand the status of the play in a given community. In this case, H-Cloud is about cloud computing, of course. And so we are working on helping the Commission to understand what could be the priorities in terms of supporting through cloud computing the digital transformation in Europe. And we have been doing an extensive study on that. And I hope that today I will be able to present some of the views and the important elements we collected in the project, especially in relation to the importance now of the transition toward edge computing. So somehow applying cloud computing technologies, but outside the data center, to create what is also called often cloud edge continuum computing. And yes, that's it from my side. Thanks for the invitation and for organizing this panel.
Thank you, Federico. So we have something interesting. We have two Mexican entrepreneurs. Then we have Federico, who is well, between Federico and Matt, let's say they cover the whole thing. They go from the business architecture to the technical architecture and the tech stuff, Kubernetes, etc. So this is going to be pretty interesting, I believe. So let me start with Esther and Aldo. Both of you work in big companies, right? Actually, very big companies. And then, like a few years ago, I'm not going to say 3, 4, 5. Then you did the jump to being an entrepreneur. How does that feel? How did you decide to do that? How does it feel? What barriers did you find when you did that? Why don't we start with Esther?
Thank you very much, Enrique. Well, I think that it was decided for me because in my 30 years, I worked for IBM, Oracle, SAP, big companies and Informatica. But at the end, one of the companies, Informatica, decided not to close offices in Mexico City. So I became a partner. And I was very frightened of that because I had never been by myself and under responsibility. But now that was the best thing that happened to me, because as an entrepreneur, you have the chance to go now with all this new technology and do things and transform with technology. So that's the way I began 6 years ago. And today I'm very happy. But you have to focus in many things, you know. Now you have to study more to be more aware about the tendencies of technology and business and industries and many other things, but it's very interesting.
Good. Did you find any barriers from the get-go? I mean, did you have enough money to fund your thing?
No. You never had enough money. In fact, when you're growing, you find out that the finance is something, when you have a salary, it's very nice to have it all months. But now even you have a lot of investment to do to grow, and you have to know about finance, and you have to know about operations to continue the operations, and you have to know about human resources to maintain your people and stay with you and loyalty with you, and you have to do a lot of things. But I didn't have the money to begin, and in fact, in Mexico City, if you don't have 2 years as a company, you cannot even get any credit or loan or everything. So you have to be very well administrated for that. But when you now have the value and the references and the customers knows about what you can deliver, then you begin like growing, but all the time is investing. When you are new, you are not rich. You have to invest all the time.
What about you, Aldo? How did you do that jump into the unknown?
Yes, well, I think that it depends of the personal mission that you could have, you know. In my case, we have the vision to become global leaders in robotics. And also in terms of deep tech is a new trend for LATAM, okay? And this is important because we think that we can create robotic solutions for all the world, okay? In our case, we started our business as a software company, and then we can create deep tech technology as robotics and computer vision and all different solutions related to artificial intelligence. But I think that the most important part is that we want to position the Mexican technology in all the world. This is our mission, and that's the main reason because I am an entrepreneur right now.
Yeah, I felt when I see what you do, you're kind of a romantic guy, right? You have mission beyond the normal, which I love, but also you are
yes.
in a market that is, I wouldn't say competitive, but more like misunderstood.
Yes, I am agree with you. And also important to explain that in terms of venture capital, it's difficult to obtain financial resources for robotics in the LATAM region, because when we are presenting these kind of opportunities in terms of hardware. The VC say hardware is so capital intensive for us, and we don't want to invest in this kind of business, you know. And also, I think that we have powerful advantages here in Mexico in order to grow our robotics business. That's why we are creating our technology in our research and development area, and we want to position the Mexican technology in all the world. I think that we have all the background, all the capabilities needed in order to implement these kind of solutions for the Latin region and then for all the global scope.
Maybe I'll go to Matt. Have you worked with Mexican startups, Matt, or is your work mostly done in Europe?
So I started working in the UK only, and then I expanded into Europe. I have been in the Middle East so far. I have been to India as well. I haven't been working in Mexico or in other countries more further south in the Latin America region. However, I've got a couple of friends and colleagues working in Brazil, for instance, in Argentina. So there's a huge activity, a lot of activity going on in the Latin America and Central American market. And yeah, the European Union is very keen to reach out and build these sort of bridging programs in order to obviously facilitate two-way ideation exchange and also technology exchange and expertise exchange. So, but I'm very keen to go to Mexico and get involved in the project if there's an opportunity. So I would really love it because I have a good friend and his wife is Mexican, and each time I'm around, I'm getting a good taste of the Mexican cuisine and Mexican culture. So I can't really wait to go there.
I think you should come. Hey, do you think the for example for Esther and Aldo, I mean they are working in an immature market, I would say, that where funds are starting to be active, what they were not a couple of years ago, and what they do is basically misunderstood compared to Europe, where the technology is a more mature thing, and there are more mature institutions, and the funds know what they're talking about. But for example, when you went to India, what are your observations? Because I think India and Mexico. I live in India, by the way. So what do you think are like operating in India and operating in Europe? I mean, what are the big differences there?
So I think, so when I was in India is one of the emerging markets in the world. And I think similar emerging markets, such as some African countries, some Latin American countries, they all have the same in common. It all starts with education. And what you need is actually, you need to educate people. And most emerging countries, they have a very large young population, which is a critical asset for the future. In Europe, you have the opposite. The population is growing older, and the older population is growing larger, and there are fewer younger people. So, and emerging markets, it's all the opposite. They have more younger people, which need to be educated in order to build the future. Another thing is, what I find very fascinating is that some of the emerging market countries, they actually skipped the whole industrial revolution. They went from agriculture right straight into the digital age. So they don't have so many legacy infrastructure nationally. They don't have many sort of legacy industries and sectors, such as the coal industry in Europe, which has been coming down, and now it's a big issue as well with the whole sort of environmental topics going on. But also emerging markets, I think one of the critical things is they need to get the technological capacities right, and also the whole regulatory framework that needs to be put in place. And I think many emerging markets actually have an advantage with that, because the regulatory framework and the landscape is much less developed, and yet they can have a much bigger impact because they don't suffer from legacy regulatory frameworks such as in Germany or in the UK, which make it more difficult to implement and to catch up with new technologies. For instance, it took a very long time for some European countries to come to terms with blockchain technology and Bitcoin and all that, whereas some other countries, such as Nigeria, for instance, they just launched the Nigerian Naira, the Nigerian blockchain-based cryptocurrency. And also El Salvador in Latin America, they also made Bitcoin a legal tender. Various other developed markets are still struggling with the regulations. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there in developing countries. Although they might not have the right skill at the moment, but they're getting there very quickly.
So Federico, from the technical point of view, I think Matt makes a good point of in countries like Mexico, we can skip generations of technology, and because we don't have as much legacy, we don't need to worry about maintaining all that old stuff, right? So what are your observations about that, skipping generations of tech? And also, I think you have operated a little bit in Mexico. What do you think about the talent that we find in Mexico and Latin America?
Yeah, maybe I start first from the talent part, which I found very interesting. I've been working with student from Mexico in this project, and in the past I've been working with other students or a professional from other emerging countries, and I think that the quality that Mexico has in its university system is very good. I mean, I will not say of specific cases, but I was very happy with the capacity, skills they had, the preparation, everything was really impressive, like in a top grade university in Europe. And I have to say that this is more difficult to find in other emerging countries. So I think this is really an important asset that you have there, and you need to build on that and nourish that, not to make it go away, because I believe that the main risk you might face is that these talents are interested in opportunities that are offered by other countries, and this might become a problem for you. Actually, I mean, this is actually even happening right now inside Europe, and I work with many companies and also big companies, and many of them are now facing this issue, especially after COVID, because suddenly many companies realized that remote working works and works well. And so they are keen to hire from many countries, and even inside Europe, the salary can change a lot from South Europe to North Europe. And so there are many companies in Germany that are hiring remote developers and IT specialists from Italy or from Spain, and this is a problem for in the end for the companies in these countries, because they are not able to retain these talents, and then not even in the long term, but in the short term, they are facing issues, because this means that you don't have enough workforce for the projects you are running, and so on and so forth. So this is clearly a major problem that you have to care of, to avoid that the talent that you are growing up are going to benefit other countries. And with the remote work model that COVID brought up, I mean, there is not even the let's say the issue that people doesn't want to move from home, right? Because they don't have to move from home anymore. They can just work from someone in US, in Canada, or in Europe without any issue. And in terms of the aspect of the technology, clearly this is an incredible advantage, and on many layers of the technology stack, from the infrastructure to the service layer. And this is, for example, very clear in some areas, even in Southeast Asia. I mean, I have been working in a project in Indonesia, and I was impressed, for example, of the 4G connectivity that they had. And the first time I went to Indonesia, they didn't have anything. Basically, even landline for phone calls was so old that was not working properly. And then I went there 10 years after, and they have 4G connectivity working almost even in the forest. And this means that people are getting used immediately to a new set of technology that for us are new, and in Europe, for example, and sometimes we have still to deal with the old ones, and we need to keep compatibility. And keep compatibility means not only from the point of view of the operational cost, but even from the point of view of the skills and the educational cost, because if you have a system that are most of the system, like in the bank institution in Europe, are written using languages that are more than 20 years old, and you need people that are still able to handle these languages, despite no one starting a new application will ever use them. And yes, this is indeed, I believe, a big advantage. On the other side, what is my feeling in some of the emerging countries compared to, for example, to Europe, is that the public is investing much less. And this is a problem, I believe, because the public money investment are a big push for innovation, and because they, especially when you don't have large local corporates, the only institution able to make huge investment on innovation are public authorities, and they can really, it's not just changing the way they do business, but by making investment and asking for innovation, they can, and setting the standards for doing innovation in the country, they can really mobilize and modernize the business that are working in the country, despite maybe they are still dealing with legacy technology, or they are not yet used to innovation. Because when your customer asks you for a change and for being innovative, or you do that, or you're out of business. And the public authorities in many regions in Europe are having really an impressive role in mobilizing innovation.
Thank you, Federico. To the audience, you can write your questions in the chat if you want. Then go to Aldo. Aldo, I'm kind of familiar with what you do, because I used to work in autonomous cars, right?
Perfect.
But what you do is, let's say, similar, but
it's very similar technology.
A similar technology, and it's very complex technology, right? Because you need to know about vision, speech, movement, and coming from the autonomous car algorithm and model community, how can a small company really do what you do? Because what you do is incredibly complex.
Yes, and also important to say that we are profitable right now. We're a profitable startup, and also we have been using a bootstrapping strategy from the beginning of our company. And part of the success that we have today, I think that is the investment in R&D. You know, several years ago, we started our R&D area, and we started implementing solutions for natural language processing, and we started commercializing these solutions. I think that is part of the advantages that we have in Latam region, because if you can't obtain the financial resources, you need to move quickly, and you need to commercialize your solutions in a faster way, you know. That's why we started the commercialization of our machine learning algorithms, our AI solutions. And then we obtain profit related to all these projects, and then we can invest in more R&D and more intellectual property in order to create more powerful solutions as the SLAM capability of our autonomous robots. That, as you were saying, it's okay. I think that we have a very similar solution for the autonomous cars, the self-driving cars, but apply for the indoor use cases.
And how I mean, because when I talk to my colleagues in academia, they say there are not enough people qualified, let's say, to do that type of work, but you are doing it with a small team. So
yes.
What's the trick, man? I mean, do you have a super men and women, or how does that work?
No, I don't agree with this approach, because
I don't
think
either,
that,
but tell us how
yes,
you do it.
yes, because I think here in Mexico we have top level engineers in terms of hardware, machine learning, data scientists. I think that we are top engineers. We won several competitions around the world. We have good places in RoboCup, for example. That is one of the most important robotics competitions around the world. And we think that we have talent in the universities. Why? This is important because in order to materialize a profitable business, you need to have the talent in your team. And I think that here in Mexico, we have good engineers in the universities, and we want to have some business that invest in this kind of solutions, right? I think that is the main challenge that we are facing in this moment in the robotics industry, because we need to have more entrepreneurs creating deep tech solutions and creating solutions that we can monetize in the short term. That is one of the most important topics for the growing strategy that you need to have for a startup here in LATAM and also in Mexico.
Do you think your robotics business, say you understand you have several lines of businesses, you're going to specialize in something? Because, for example, in Japan, you see now robots in restaurants, robots in hotels, robots in healthcare, right? So you will take a vertical, or will you go very wide?
Well, in this moment, we are acting as a robotics factory, you know? We are creating verticalized solutions for the different requirements, the different pain points of our clients. We are acting as a robotics factory, as a consultancy firm of robotics. But I think that the future in robotics is related to a verticalized solution, you know? In order to grow a business, you need to have exactly the same delivery process, because if you want to scale your business, you need to map this delivery process with your R&D strategy. And in the other context, if you are creating specific solutions or custom-based solutions for the different requirements of the enterprises, it's so difficult for you to scale your business, you know? That's why we think that the future of our company is in the context of a verticalized solution. In this moment, we have been found a very interesting problem related to the logistics sector. As you know, the logistics organization needs to move objects inside the warehouses every day. And this is a so capital intensive process. That's why we are creating robots for fulfillment centers, for dark fulfillment centers, for dark warehouses, you know, because the logistics industry is growing in this situation with the pandemic. And that's why we think that for LATAM region, we need to have this verticalized solution. This is in the context of the technical solution, right? But in the context of the business model, we have some important challenges. The first one is that the organizations here in LATAM don't want to buy a lot of robots in the context of CapEx. You know, for example, if you want to modernize your warehouse, you need to invest a lot of CapEx in order to buy a lot of robots, a lot of hardware. And this is so capital intensive because you need to hire also people with the expertise, with the knowledge in robotics in order to materialize the maintenance of your robots. That's why in order to grow your business in terms of robotics, data, and artificial intelligence, you need to have the correct business model. In our case, we think that the future of Roomie is in the context of RAS, that is a recurrent revenue business model. In terms of OpEx, very attractive for the organizations because they can pay in a monthly base for the complete service of our robots, not for a product.
Super interesting. Esther, You're a data expert, right? Your organization. Do you know what surprised me when I went to your website? Some of the terms you use, they were used a long time ago, right? Like data governance and master data and all that stuff. And what I detect is they are coming out, they went out of fashion, they are coming back very quickly because they never went away, really. So do you think people are now aware of the importance of concepts such as data governance again, now that we use them for machine learning models and all that stuff? Or what happened there that they came back from the dark to being very fashionable?
Right.
You are now in a very hot,
Yes.
let's say, market.
Yes, of course, Enrique. You know that many of the concepts have been talk about them in the past, many things, you know. For example, in the 60s, a guy called John McCarthy told that everything was going to be as a service. So it was the beginning of the cloud, for example. And IBM created the first a chess game with a computer, and it was the first artificial intelligence. And the computer doesn't beat the human since she learned how to do it, you know. So in the past, maybe data was not as important because the data was, when I was working in IBM, I told the guys that if you needed to search something, it was on the mainframe, and it was the knowledge of IBM in the mainframe, but it was not like today that everything's on the internet. And when the internet explodes, then the data explode. And then with all the things on technology coming, now the data comes to be a very important part of companies and everything, you know. In the past, it was important to know the information on your accounting system, on your human resources, on your business model, on everything. But the explosion of data, it came to get the attention of the people on how to handle and manage all that data around. And that's where it comes the importance of that. In the past, I remember that many people had a strategy, and everybody of you knows about big data. And everybody says the buzzword some years ago, like 6 years when I created Alldatum, was big data. But then the people realized that big data was nothing without a perfect data strategy, how to integrate all the information, how can I have the right information, the quality of the information, the data quality of that, because there was a lot of data, structured, not structured data, and many things. And how can I get it to get it that I can use it, you know? And then how can I relate all that data around, and how can I use it? So now I think people, it's beginning to understand that even the data governance is not like someone is going to govern you because people doesn't like to be governed. It's just because you need to fulfill now some prerequisites and legal things and protection of legal things like data protection, because today there's other things coming around data, the ethics of data, because now everybody has data of you. How are they going to use the data for you? Security of data, because now everybody working in their houses, you have to have this security, cyber security. On the pandemic, there was a lot of more attacks on phishing and other things. So you have to have more learning about this. And what you talk about the people, and if there is enough talent in the market, now I know that there is talent and very good professionals, but also you have to give them the opportunity of getting the experience, because the knowledge is there. And in the past, if you wanted to know something, you have to go to the manual and read the full manual to understand something. But now everything's on the internet. So to the knowledge, if you want to learn Python, if you want to learn R or analytics or any Spark and other things, it's on the internet. So everybody can be very useful. So the answer is yes. Today, the oil of the new companies is data. So it's a very hot spot, and all the companies who wants to succeed needs to have a very good data strategy to explode and analyze the data.
Yeah, so let me go to Matt. Matt, you heard what Aldo and Esther do. They sound to me like they're solving problems that are global and that they could easily scale out of Mexico to any market, including Europe. But what's your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, they can certainly scale into the European market, to the American market, clearly. I mean, but I guess the thing is the barriers usually SMEs or startups find in Europe is, and this is a big problem, is that Europe comprises of 27 different countries, the European Union at least, and then we have, I guess, 38 or so that call themselves European countries, being out, including the ones outside the European Union. However, I think the market in Europe is very much sort of, what's it called, like fragmented. So you have many different countries with different legislations, different regulatory requirements, and that makes it a bit harder. I would suggest maybe going to the US first because it's a one unified market. It's a much larger population over there. I mean, then obviously Mexico. But also it's much easier to scale because it's a single market, whereas Europe claims to have a single market, and in many respects it is a single market. But then on the other hand, you have the issue of languages, you have the issue of different technological standards as well. So I guess the European Union is currently in the process of developing a single market, and that is one of the main problems we have in Europe, is that startups and scale-ups are not really able to scale across the entire European Union because of all of these different issues. And the European Union is putting a lot of money behind solving these problems and getting these projects such as Federico is working on currently. It's probably Horizon 2020 project, as I understand, in order to unify the single market. But you also find similar approaches in Africa, for instance. In Africa, I think 2 years ago or so, they signed the agreement on government level, on African government level, to form the African Union in order to get rid of all the borders, the border transactions, the customs between the borders, and also to launch a single currency in the African market, which is also a project which I find very fascinating, in order to unify all the individual countries. I think 54 countries or so are in the African continent. So they're basically following a similar approach that we have been following in Europe. And yet, I think it will still take a long time where we get to a point where maybe continents are actually representative of countries in a way, and then continents will compete and also collaborate with each other on a larger scale. But I think we are in a good way. But I guess my suggestion would be for a tech startup that has a lot of scale built in from the get-go, they maybe should try the US market, not only because of the complications and the fragmentation, which is difficult in Europe, but also because the US, they have a much larger venture capital capacities. The venture capital landscape is much more developed, and venture capital is very much key for any tech startup because it's expensive. Technology is expensive. Technology is advancing very rapidly. People have to be educated and skilled, and you always have to hire very high-skilled people that can basically keep the company competitive in the market. And in the US at the moment, it's very much so. As a tech startup, you can find much more venture capital and scale much quicker. So I don't know what the plans are for the startup. But I guess they have already worked it out, or probably working on different strategies. But yeah, but I guess Europe is very much behind, and I guess in a couple of years, Europe will also be at the same point where the US is currently, because the Europeans are very much taking the US market and the landscape as a blueprint, and they're trying to emulate the same sort of single market principle here in Europe as well.
And Federico, it seems we're all converging to the technology, right? These containers, microservices, orchestration, all that stuff. But what's next? What do you think is beyond that?
Well, at the current type is clearly on the edge part, and somehow it's not that edge computing didn't exist before. The problem is how you were doing edge computing and the capacity that you had at the edge. So the thing is that, and you see this in many markets. I mean, now it's incredible what a car can do, right? And this because the capacity of the hardware on the car increased a lot for the same space. And clearly, it's not that you can put a data center in your car. So this is the most important factor. So the miniaturization of processing units and the increasing capacity they have, and even the specialization, so the capacity of running high specific algorithms or of hosting multiple GPUs and so on, is clearly the factor that driven the growth of the potential of computing at the edge. And so what is the challenge here? Is the challenge is to manage somehow the edge infrastructure in the same simplified way you can do with the cloud computing services, because one of the major advantage of cloud that is everything kind of easy from a developer, but also in the end from an end user point of view, because you ask for an instance of a service, you get it, and you don't need to care much about the configuration of it. While if you think to the, let's say, legacy edge technology, this is something you go on the field with cable stuff, you install the firmware on the device and you make it work. Clearly, this is not something that scale, because it's easy to, if you have to do something like that in a data center, because all your servers are inside the room, as much as big the room, you don't need to travel all the country, right? When you talk about edge computing, doing this in the legacy way, it cannot scale clearly. So the real challenge, and this is what most of the new technology, and especially the one around Kubernetes, but even other open source stack, like the one recently promoted by the Linux Foundation, like LF Edge, they are all based on the principle of applying cloud computing architecture also to the edge, and having easy way to distribute over the air let's say, in this case is not more the firmware, but is more the operating system with the configuration to run the services to multiple device across the globe. And this would, when this technology is mature, this will really make a big change. And I think this is also something I'm sure Aldo is looking into, because if he's selling many robots and he has to provide them as a service, and so maintain the software stack over there and deploying new services and so on, is facing the same challenges. The thing is that while maybe in the cloud, traditional cloud and the operation of the data center, you have clearly a set of consolidated and mature technology. This is not yet the case for, let's say, the combination of cloud and edge operation. And on the other side, clearly the increase of complexity of the infrastructure that is going to come up demands for more intelligent infrastructure. And in this sense, I think that the biggest evolution that we will see is artificial intelligence having more and more a role in managing the IT or cloud-based infrastructure. And this is clearly related to the fact that the more nodes you have to manage, the more automation you need. And Human are good for having clever ideas, but not to manage by themselves millions of things. It doesn't scale, right? And so these are clearly the 2 points. So artificial intelligence in the cloud and migration toward the edge and embracing the edge in the cloud, the next short-term evolution that for sure we are going to witness.
Thank you, Federico. Aldo, I think you need to go soon. So I believe you have a question, but I cannot see the question. Can somebody help me?
Oh, no, I don't have the question. I was writing the answer to a question from the audience.
Yes. Can you go ahead?
Okay, yes. Well, let me...
Can you read the question? And
yes,
I cannot see the question.
Let me find the question again. Okay.
All right.
If I may, it was related to the end-to-end logistics and how they can adapt to a small company.
Oh, that was the question. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I was saying that in order to materialize artificial intelligence digitalization in our organization, we have several ways to do that. For example, if you want to start the venture in a low-cost manner, maybe you can use pre-trained models that is presented for the different cloud vendors in terms of APIs on the cloud. I think that is a very good way in order to start your digitalization process, because you can pay only for the computer resources that you are using exactly in this moment in the context of a serverless solution, for example. And then if you obtain a new level of maturity for your organization, you can create a small research and development area using data scientists, for example, in order to create your specific models in terms of machine learning and artificial intelligence. But in our experience, I think that the best path is to use pre-trained models that you can obtain in the different marketplaces for the cloud vendors.
Thank you, Aldo. I don't know if you need to go or...
Yes, I need to leave the panel. Thank you very much.
That's a shame. That was very interesting. Thank you, Aldo.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you, Aldo.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Aldo. Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck with the robots, man.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye-bye. Hey, Esther, how did you, now that we're using a lot of open data and we're using a lot of data that comes from social networks and all that, how did the discipline of data governance change?
Oh, it changed very much, because now you know that all the social networks now can put in a very good point to a brand or not. You have to be very careful on the way everybody is talking. For example, every social network has their own industry. And for example, Twitter, it's the social network where everybody can say anything about everything. So you have to be very careful on the things that everybody who works even with you post and behave. Today, it's like a spot and everybody is seeing you. And I think that the data now, it's less data, it's now in the data centers. And many more data it's on the cloud and outside on the mobile, on the applications and mobile applications, and on the social network and on other things that comes in the new area of technology, in the biometrics and the barcodes, and a lot of information is not structured data, and more that in the past, many of the data was on the traditional databases, the SQL databases and the traditional relational databases. Now the social media things, everything that everybody is talking about you, it's very important. And the digital marketing, that it's part of the digital transformation, because digital transformation and the cloud, it's gonna help a lot on this. It's not only the technology, it's the way that you're seeing the processes, the business models that Federico's talking and also Aldo talk about, and also the processes to have all this. So you have to have new internal politics for the people to how they behave on social network, to monitorize everything that is going on in the social networks, and also to get all that information, all that data coming from the Aldo robots, for example, if he uses Internet of Things, all those things are telling you things for your business. The intelligent artificial intelligence that Federico was talking about, there's now a way to implement that, to see how your customers are behaving and how it's better to promote some product, for example, or the machine learning, for example. In logistics, all the information that comes from, for example, blockchain is being used for monitoring, to review the product and the steps of the product. So blockchain, it's very important technology too, or the digital twins, for example, or the 3D reality, for example. All that data non-structured is very important, but also it's very important all the things that you are creating on the social network, and those data is non-structured, and you have to find out the way of bringing them to your computer in order to analyze all that information, to give you information about you, how you're treating your customer, the loyalty and everything. And what helps is now the technology, cloud technology, it's helping a lot on this, because as the people is asking, why, if I'm a small business, like a very small business, how can I begin? And the cloud helps you, because in the past you have to have a data center with all the cooling systems and everything to perform the things. Now, you don't have to have that. You can run your business and you can be more efficient operationally if you can have these human resources on the cloud, or CRM on the cloud, or ERP on the cloud, for example. And in the other hand, you have to have a strategy of digital marketing and also PR on the networks. Everything, it's posted on the network. So it's a part of new politics, govern that part, but you have to govern a lot of things, Enrique. Now the data, it's everywhere, and millions of data, you know.
Yeah, that some data is under your direct control and some is not, like Twitter, right? What you were saying is you have employees tweeting with their wearing the hat of your company. So how do you govern that, except for by telling them don't do this and don't do that? But I mean, it's an open community. They can say whatever they want. It can be misunderstood. I mean, there are many opportunities for horrible failures, right?
Yes, you have to take care on that, on your employees, and take care of telling them, but you can do that. You can't. It's now everything's very open. You have a digital history and everything's now on the media.
Right. Hey, we have a question from the audience. It says, I'm going to read it. It's a question, is data analysis presenting a new form of cooperation, international cooperation between companies and countries? So here we go again. Is data analysis creating a new form of international cooperation between companies and countries? Not sure I understand the question, but somebody wants to take that one?
Yeah, maybe I can give my thoughts.
Okay.
I mean, interestingly, if you look at the population of Facebook, I think it's over 4 billion now, 3 to 4 billion. So if Facebook was a country, it was the biggest country in the world. And if you look at the number of users of Google, Google would be, I guess, probably even a more bigger country, probably 4 or 5 billion users if you include Android, the operating system for mobile phones, and Google search. And many people have a Gmail account. So if you look at all of these large numbers of people that use technology on a daily basis and input their data, because we live in a data economy, then you would rather quickly realize that a company such as Facebook has more access to people's data than any other country in the world. I mean, America has 350 million or so people population. China is 1.1 or 2 billion, I suppose. But these companies are much larger. So, and also the fact that everyone is putting their individual data into Google or Facebook or any other social network for that matter on a continuous basis, even involuntary. Your phone tracks you wherever you go. If you use Google Maps, so you're being tracked 24/7 basically. So, and I think when it comes to data exchange and government, in the US, there are many cases where Apple was asked in criminal cases to unlock or to break into iPhones actually, and Apple refused to do that in order to retain consumer protection. But I think many governments are very keen to get their hands on all the large amounts of data collected on their citizens, at least in the Western, let's say, in Western democracies. If you look at countries like China, for instance, which completely control all the data of companies that they gather, it's a very different picture. If you remember companies like Jack Ma's Alibaba, for instance, which is a massive company, it's like a clone of Amazon or copy. They try to launch a huge bank and many financial services products, which they successfully did. But just before they started going IPO, the government stepped in and said, you cannot go IPO, we have to take control of all your data. And the Chinese government is very keen to take control of all of the data flow that is being collected by all private companies on their territory, and they do so. So that's a stark contrast to what the Western countries are actually doing, where private companies are still have governance and ownership over data, but don't allow the government basically to use or to utilize the data at their will. There are obviously many cases where Google is requesting access to data of Facebook, or where the government is requesting data of Google or Facebook in criminal cases and so forth, and the number is rising. And yet, I think the companies are still the owners of the large consumer data globally. And I think it's a fascinating phenomenon. If you think that private sector companies are actually having more data on people than any other entity in the world, and any other entity that ever had any data about the people. And the only organization that comes to my mind, which is a very large organization that has been around for probably almost 1,500 years or longer, is the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is a very old organization with a large number of members, clearly, and yet I think they never had so much data on their members than any other tech company, and yet it's comparable maybe to the big tech giants in the world, because the Catholic Church also operates internationally and cross-country and across continents, and yet obviously they're not able to collect as much data. But then again, I mean, it's an interesting phenomenon, and I think data analytics, obviously, if that happens on government level in the same way as it happens on company level, I think this would be very interesting. But because we live in democracies, we still have the division between tech companies and governments, unlike China, as I mentioned earlier. But I think we're moving towards a time where governments are more and increasingly becoming aware of the capacities they have on collecting data on their citizens, because e-governments, countries like Estonia, for instance, that do everything online. As a citizen, you can do pretty much everything online. And I guess in 10 or 20 years or so, most governments in the world will have switched to online governance and will communicate with the citizens online. And I guess then they will have the same abilities as the tech companies have these days. It's still a bit of way to go, but I guess at some point we will be there maybe, and then we will have the sort of 1984 picture that most people actually have been warning us a long time ago, but I guess it's somewhat at some point getting there really. So that's, I guess, the future for all of us.
Yeah, I guess the regulators are taking notice, right? That, for example, Google owns Waze and owns, I don't know the name of the sport wearable company. So I was teaching a class and I said, guess what? Google knows where you were with timestamps precisely in a map, either when you are walking or when you are driving. So Google really knows you. And we're just talking about your location and the time of your location. and everything else, right? So that's, I wouldn't say dangerous, but you could say you have good intentions, but there is potential for misuse, I would say.
I just want to make one more comment on that note. In the US, there's actually an interesting article in the New York Times from, I think, January 2020, right after the storm on the Capitol in the US in Washington. And what the New York Times investigative journalists managed to do was they acquired private data and mobile phone tracking data of private companies commercially. And then they were able to put together individual profiles of individuals that traveled from the countryside in the US all the way to the capital. And they were able to prove the very fact that these very individuals actually entered the Capitol building by way of analyzing the GPS data of the mobile phones that were in their pockets. And there's a very good article about that. If you Google, you'll find it. And the article goes to show how easy it has become for private individuals, not only journalists, but people like you and me, acquire individual data of mobile phones that have been tracked by mobile phones and put pictures together. So it's not only that you can analyze people on crowd level, but also on individual level. And these journalists prove the very fact that you can do that as a private individual. So that's very much where we are right now.
Exactly. A question for Federico. It came for Federico. Can you talk about the H-Cloud project a little?
Yeah, sure. So as I was mentioning in the H-Cloud project, we are working as on one side as a community building, so trying to gather different cloud experts in Europe. So you can think of all the big companies like European and not, of course, so like Atos, engineering, SAP, local data center, cloud provider like Ionos, international one like Microsoft, Amazon, and so on, and to understand what they are doing and also what their type of challenges are to provide solution in a given sector and so on. And on the other side, we work with the Commission basically to understand how to match these challenge and needs from the companies with the policy landscape that the Commission is setting up. And actually, in the past year and a half, the Commission with the new framework coming up was very active on the policy side related to both data and cloud, and they are really shaping up an interesting vision that, of course, it has also to be taken up by the industries in Europe. But basically, the central of the vision is the creation of data spaces where different actors can, in a, let's say, fair way, so under a data governance which is led and monitored by the Commission, exchange data and run analytics on these data that have been exchanged, respecting the ownership of the data and the fit for purpose, of course, which is also the important aspect when you talk about confidential or private data. And in this respect, I mean, our work is really focusing on understanding what are the different type of challenges. So from the technical point of view, but from the economical and also the organizational point of view to realize this vision. And clearly on several aspects, this is there is still a lot of work to be done because I'm not sure you are aware, but the large part of the companies in Europe are SMEs. I think is more than 70%, and Matt sure knows better the number than me. But this means also that for them, the competition is tough. And not all of them are able to invest on innovation because they don't have the right skill inside the company or the right mindset, because maybe they come from a business that is maybe even 100 years old, and they want to do the business in the same way they have been doing. And taking part to this digital transformation, which is all around data, is fundamental for them to not being left behind, but at the same time they need to understand how this can happen. And in this case, we are really setting up with the Commission a number of strategic action that the Commission inside the different DG could take to support this take up from SMEs, but even other industrial actors of the new wave of digital transformation to collaborate to build this data space vision in Europe.
This was a fascinating panel. We are coming to the time of closing remarks, a couple of minutes each. Esther, you go first.
Thank you, Enrique. Well, just to say everybody here, and Luis Raimundo, about your question about everything that you said, if the analytics is going to make the way of countries and enterprise collaborate differently, of course. I think it's very important that the big analytics, the big data, the data governance, the cloud, and everything about data and the digital transformation is coming. Everybody needs to know and understand on their companies how to move to that part, beginning for the little thing and then grow on that. And the cloud makes you help you on that. And of course, everybody is going to collaborate differently because now everybody is going to be linked in their experiences on the things that are, it's the experience of others doing things, and competition is moving forward. For example, about Aldo's autonomous automobile, for example, now Domino's has that in the United States. So the competition needs to do that. So now it's a matter of analyzing everything that is there. Look on Google, the internet, who knows everything also about us, but knows everything. And try to find out which is the best fit for you and your company. No matter your size, you can go to the cloud and begin with the things that are important for your processes, maybe human resources, maybe operations, maybe sales, maybe a website, whatever, but everything you can do it on the cloud and the analytic, but step by step, not everything at the first, step by step. And don't forget to have a data strategy. That's very important. Since the beginning, no matter if you are little or big, you have to have a data strategy. Thank you, Enrique.
Thank you, Esther. Matt, closing remarks.
Yeah, so thank you very much for the invitation. It was very extremely interesting to listen to my co-panelists about their businesses and strategies and their views as well. So I'm very grateful having been on the panel. Yeah, in terms of big data, I mean, I think we pretty much live in the future without even realizing it. Everything's being tracked and analyzed, and data is collected everywhere we go and every breath we take with our fitness trackers and mobile phones and internet usage. So there's always somewhere listening in someone at some point. So I think that's the reality we have to come to terms with. And but my view is looking more on the government side of things. I think data in itself is innocent. It's just what you do with it. That is basically, and in which hands data actually ends up. That's, I think, what we need to be taken care of really. But it's an exciting time, and also there's a lot of good use, obviously, that you can do with the data analytics, such as for medical purposes and helping people in different ways. So I guess it really depends who's using big data, but I'm certain that everyone on the panel is using data only to the best interest of society, so I'm not really concerned. But thank you very much for having me on the panel, and it was really exciting, and also thank you very much to the moderator.
Thank you, Matt. Federico, closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Enrique. Well, I would like to just say a couple of things on what are the two important elements that I think company needs to invest on to be successful in this evolution toward the cloud service. And I'm not sure big data analytics is the current name, maybe it's more machine learning or artificial intelligence driven solutions. And the first thing is talent. And this means also that you need the talents you need to work with doesn't need to be in your company, but you need to be able to create an ecosystem where you have people that are able to help you to innovate your business and take the best out of the current and future technology that are coming. This means that if you have the possibility to hire a high-skilled person, of course, do it. If you cannot do that, you can not necessarily need to go through consultant, but you can even look at establishing partnership with the university and research centers. And this is also a very important way to enable the innovation inside your business, because if you have a problem, people from universities and research centers are always able to find a proper solution for you. And you don't have to think that this solution is just a toy. There are very, very high level and top quality academics that are really able to provide you with solutions that are going to work perfectly deployed in the market. And the other aspect is the investment on open source technologies. Open source is reached a level of maturity that is really incredible in many sectors, even in robotic. And Aldo is gone, but I'm sure he will acknowledge that as well. And this means that you don't need necessarily to be afraid to be locked in specific APIs or solution of Amazon or Google and so on, because I understand that this can be a fear factor, because you don't want to be locked in not much in the provider, but in the API, because the problem is what is you need to reach a location where the provider is not available and so on. How can you do that? And a good solution for that is really using and not being afraid of open source technology. But for doing that, you need to be able to understand all the pro and cons that comes with the open source technology, understanding their licensing model and so on. But I'm sure, and I have seen these in many success business stories, you can build your solution on top of open source technologies as much as you do on top of some of the services offered by Amazon and Google. And the advantage and this is general, of course, is not related to the open source, but when you don't develop something from scratch, and you leverage on some baseline solution, is that you can focus on the core part of your business. And this is a fundamental competitive advantage, because if you have to focus on your business, but to be able to focus on your business, you have to create and invest on many enablers. Probably the money you can invest on the core aspects of your digital business is not very much. And instead leveraging on existing solution, it's true that is a cost, because you invest on purchasing them or on the expertise to making them run or on the cloud resources, but then your developers are not investing on, you are not investing the time on developers on developing something that already exists. You can invest the time of your team focusing on the specific product and functionalities you want to deliver make the difference in your business.
Thank you,
That's it.
Federico. Thank you to our great panelists. Now I give the control back to Adrián or Lucía.
Muchas gracias, Enrique. Muchas gracias a todos. Realmente ha sido un panel muy interesante. Les queremos solicitar a las personas que están en el webinar, si por favor pueden, bueno, primero que nada, responder a la encuesta que les compartimos en el chat para tener un poco de retroalimentación. Y lo último, si pueden por favor abrir sus cámaras para tomarnos nuestra tradicional foto de grupo de este webinar. Entonces, mi compañero Adrián les va a comenzar a dar acceso a las cámaras una vez que lo soliciten para tomar la foto.
Sí, muchas gracias. Y también, Lucía, si les puedes comentar de los siguientes webinars, todo esto, por favor. Nada más dame 2 minutitos en los que activo las cámaras. Gracias.
Claro, de igual forma, la inscripción a los webinars es individual. Entonces, si se inscribieron a uno previo, pensando que iba a ser para todos, es webinar por webinar. Entonces, si quieren seguir participando de esta lista de webinars, les agradeceríamos que pues vuelvan a inscribirse a los siguientes, que todavía tenemos de aquí al mes de diciembre. Y les vamos a compartir también ahorita la liga para que puedan realizar las inscripciones.
Gracias. 2 minutos más, nada más. Es que tengo que activar las cámaras una por una. Quienes ya puedan activarla, por favor, si nos ayudan, para tomar una foto dentro de unos 30 segundos, por favor. ¿Quién más? Vale. Pues muchas gracias también a los panelistas. Muchas gracias, Enrique. Matt, thank you very much for joining. Esther, muchas gracias por sus aportes. Y a ver, acá les decimos sobre las dudas que tengan, ¿vale? Aquí Lucía acaba de poner el sitio de internet del foro para que se registren a los siguientes eventos, ¿vale? Entonces, quien pueda activar su cámara, les pedimos que lo hagan. Y vamos a tomar la foto, ¿vale? ¿Me apoyas, Lucía, por favor?
Sí,
Sonrían.
ya lo tengo.
Please smile, Matt. Ok, vale.
Listo.
Pues muchas gracias a todos por su atención. Gracias, Enrique, por la moderación. Federico, thank you very much for joining. Matt, Esther, que estén muy bien. Hasta luego. Los esperamos en la próxima.
Thank you.
Al contrario, gracias a ustedes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you very much for
Bye
organizing.
bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Gracias,
Bye.
bye.